Well, the federal government says it's taking further action to protect steel and aluminum industries amid the trade war with the U.S. So Ottawa will introduce rules at the end of the month that limit federal procurement to using steel and aluminum from Canada or what it calls, quote, reliable trading partners. It also plans to adjust counter-tariffs on steel and aluminum products July 21st. Prime Minister Mark Carney says those adjustments will be consistent with progress made during the trade talks with Washington. Carney and President Trump agreed at the G7 to pursue negotiations towards a new deal within 30 days.
We're willing to sign a security and economic or commercial agreement with the United States that's in Canada's best interest, and only that. So that's the negotiation. That there is still some room to travel, so to speak, before we get to that point. But we have a deadline in order to achieve that. And if it's in Canada's interest, we'll sign it. If it's not, we won't.
And President Trump imposed 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports in March before hiking the rate to 50% earlier this month. For more on this, we're joined by Kenan Lumis. He's the president and CEO of the Canadian Institute of Steel Construction. Kenan, thanks a lot for taking time to speak with us this afternoon. First off, we heard from Prime Minister Carney, maybe 2 hours ago. I want to get your first take, your first thoughts on what you heard.
Thanks, Bakari, for having me. I think that, we've been waiting for this new government to settle in and develop a sort of framework for how to help our industry get through this really difficult time. I want to remind Canadians that it's the steel and the aluminum industries that are right now still impacted by tariffs from the United States. So it's great to get some attention from this government and to get a bit of a framework. Obviously, details still need to be worked out, but we are responding very positively to the domestic procurement part of this equation. This is something we've been calling for since well before tariffs, in fact, that we need to, and we expect the taxpayers would expect the taxpayer dollars go to support our domestic industries. So that's something that we are very positive about, as well as making sure that trade that we have to compete only against countries that are reciprocal to Canada, that also invite us into their markets and that do so on a fair basis. That's something that's very important for us going forward.
Kenan, your thoughts on adjusting additional counter tariffs July 21st to reflect progress?
Yeah, we're certainly hopeful that we don't have to get there because reciprocal tariffs only hurt us more, especially when we rely on so much steel supply from the United States. Things like I-beams, you think of that as being one of the most fundamental shapes in a structure. We don't make those here in Canada. So to slap tariffs on those beams, reciprocal tariffs only doubles, the injury for our industry. So I liked how the Prime Minister laid it out kind of as a carrot or a stick. Take it, whatever. What do you choose? You want to lower the temperature, lower our tariffs so that we can get back to free trade across our two borders, or if you want to continue to insist upon levying 50% tariffs on Canadian steel, well, we're going to have to retaliate.
Hey, Kenan, what's your take on creating two task forces, one for steel and one for aluminum, to protect Canada?
Well, we certainly appreciate that opportunity. It's something that we think is very necessary, that, we get all the industry stakeholders around the table to advise government. We've made a lot of progress over the last little bit with the public service because, the public service is involved in procurement of steel on a lot of projects. Center Block project is one of those really, really important ones. So they've been working with us, but we haven't had as much alignment with the political side of the equation. And of course, again, it's a new government. We were just through an election when there really was no engagement with politicians. So it's nice to get into that. And I think that's going to be really important to help share what the impacts are going to be for us on various measures introduced by the federal government. To be able to provide that feedback in real time will be really important.
Yeah, Kenan, as we wrap up, that was a great lead into my last question. Do you feel like the voice of your industry has been heard with this latest announcement, and expound upon that?
I certainly do. When we laid out our, election advice, the Liberal Party, in fact, adopted basically everything we were throwing out there, so we appreciated that. And again, we've received a lot of support from the public service. This will just be getting that to the next phase where we're able to get alignment between industry, public service, and the political folks. Protecting our access to the U.S. market is the most important thing for us. We do a lot of work in the U.S. We procure a lot of steel from the U.S. as well. It's a really balanced amount of trade that goes back and forth between our two countries. There was no reason to disrupt this flow. Unfortunately, it's been injurious not just to Canada but to the United States as well, and I think they're seeing that, and hopefully cooler heads will prevail and we'll get back to a free trade across the entire continent.
All right, Kenan Lumis, President and CEO of the Canadian Institute of Steel Construction. Thanks a lot for your time and your thoughts this afternoon.